Welcome back to the Deep Six Wrestling Podcast. It is May 27th. We're coming in here for the weekend of Double or Nothing, which means we're also coming towards the end of the Best of the Super Juniors tournament for New Japan Pro Wrestling. And once again, I'm back. I'm Pat for the Deep Six Wrestling Podcast, and I'm here talking about the Best of the Super Juniors. It's going to be our coverage for Night 8 of the tournament. I am behind by one night, so I have Night 8 watched. I'm going to be watching Night 9 as soon as I finish this, and I'm recording a podcast for that. So that's what's going on. We have 2 tournament days this weekend. So it's going to be a busy weekend. We have Night 10 on Saturday and Night 10 on Sunday, which is also when Double or Nothing is for AEW. And even just outside of wrestling, this weekend's busy because you have you have movie releases like Top Gun Maverick, which I've already seen, the Bob's Burgers movie, which I'll be seeing on Saturday, I think. Kenobi, the first 2 episodes just released. I watched them last night, and they were fantastic. And Stranger Things, the new season of Stranger Things has also started over on Netflix. So just a lot of stuff being released. So bear with us, or bear with me as I get through this tournament. That being said, if you're new here, be sure to comment down below on your favorite matches of the tournament so far, or who your MVP is of the tournament. If you're on YouTube, be sure to leave a like if you're on YouTube as well. And if you're on Apple or Spotify, please leave a review. Help us get the podcast to more people. We appreciate all the support, so thank you in advance. And be sure to subscribe wherever you listen. And also, you can follow us over on Twitter if you want to stay up to date with when we post new episodes, at Deep Six Wrestling without the G. Pretty easy to find us. Alright, that being said, before we actually get into the Best of the Super Juniors, since, New Japan related, it'd be kind of weird to not mention the press conference that was held this morning with regard to KOTA IBUSHI. So, I'm just going to read this straight from New Japan's website. So, on Friday, May 27th, which is today, Takaki Kanani and Takami Obari greeted members of the media to address comments made on social media by KOTA IBUSHI. The news conference is available in video form online. And they also put an update in here with President Obari's statement was clarified with regard to KOTA IBUSHI's mother's suicide attempt. After the press conference was held, Ibushi posted a tweet about how it was glossed over, and they fixed it. So, alright, so we have this. This is going to take a little bit to read, but we'll go through it. Just, for the sake. Today, on behalf of New Japan Pro Wrestling, I would like to address recent claims made by KOTA IBUSHI. Starting May 10th, KOTA IBUSHI began releasing statements critical of certain members of the NJPW staff on Twitter. Firstly, I would like to deeply apologize for the concern these comments caused amongst fans and personnel. Statements posted on Twitter included screenshots of a text conversation with a member of staff, henceforth known as official, that included a threat that Ibushi's contract would be terminated. On investigation, we ascertained from the individual concerned that these screenshots were indeed genuine. I would now like to take a moment to explain the series of events that led up to the aforementioned post to the extent of our current understanding. KOTA IBUSHI is a wrestler exclusively contracted to New Japan Pro Wrestling. As such, it is understood that in order to devote full attention to NJPW matches and associated events, he is required to inform and receive express permission from NJPW before making outside appearances. On March 4th, in breach of terms of his contract, Mr. Ibushi made an appearance seconding wrestlers at a Just Tap Out event. The aforementioned official is responsible for contacting various wrestlers contracted to New Japan Pro Wrestling, but also has a long personal history with Mr. Ibushi that extends far before him becoming an exclusively contracted talent. The official contacted Mr. Ibushi in the belief that Mr. Ibushi's actions in breach of his contract were taken deliberately to persuade NJPW to terminate its agreement with him. Perceiving this as a betrayal of personal trust established over a number of years, his messages were sent in an emotional state as a result. When I myself learned of Mr. Ibushi's appearance in a different promotion, I requested a full status report from the official. Therefore, it is possible that the official's contact with Mr. Ibushi also involved a desire to find out the exact the exact particulars of the situation to relay to myself. In relaying this report, the official told me that he thought Mr. Ibushi wanted to leave New Japan. Not wanting to lose the services of KOTA Ibushi in such a manner, and wanting to find out his true mental state and opinions on this matter, I arranged a meeting with Ibushi at his personal training facility on March 31st. In my brief meeting with Mr. Ibushi, we chatted while we conducted some light exercise. As we moved on the mat and participated in some jump training, I was amazed at his superhuman physical abilities, yet Ibushi confided that he had found recovery from his 2021 shoulder injury was taking longer than he had expected, and that his range of motion was far from ideal. After our conversation, Mr. Ibushi took me by car to a restaurant where we continued our conversation. It was amicable, and Mr. Ibushi explained to me that he had been invited to Just Tap Out by its manager, Taka Michinoku. He also explained that while he was in the dressing rooms, he made an impulsive decision on his own accord to head to ringside and second the wrestlers. After receiving Mr. Ibushi's explanation, I reprimanded him, reminding that this was a breach of contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling, as well as a breach of licensing agreements we hold with other companies. Mr. Ibushi sincerely apologized for his actions, and Ibushi's penalty for his breach was limited to a reprimand, as on hearing with Mr. Ibushi, it was clear there was no intention to breach the terms of his contract, nor did he believe a breach had taken place, because he had not participated in a match. At the point of our meeting, I did not know the exact wording or particulars of Mr. Ibushi's text conversation with the official, and as a result, did not offer a proper apology for the content of the conversation. Several weeks later, on May 10th, screenshots of the conversation on the Line service were made public. I have since learned that those tweets were made when Mr. Ibushi was acting in a state of concern for his mother, with mental distress being caused by this situation. Mr. Ibushi told me that after discussing the details of his situation with his mother, on May 8th she attempted suicide. On May 9th, when he was discussing the details of his situation with his mother on May 9th, and then on May 9th she attempted suicide and suffered a broken bone in her back as a result. After the first series of Mr. Ibushi's tweets were posted, a meeting was held on May 10th, including our company's legal staff, in order to understand the particulars of the situation and to determine the best possible course of action for both New Japan Pro Wrestling and Mr. Ibushi. We determined that said best course of action would be to directly meet with Mr. Ibushi to formally apologize and hear one another's opinions before making a public announcement should one be deemed necessary. As a result, there has been no formal announcement from the company on this matter until this time. However, yesterday, myself and the company owner, Mr. Takaki Kadani, were able to meet with Mr. Ibushi and discuss this statement to you here as well, our opinions on the matter. Before proceeding, I would like to once again sincerely apologize to fans for the concern caused by this series of events. I would now like to relay the company's stance on the situation. Mr. Ibushi's actions in attending an outside event with proper procedure, as well as publicly disclosing internal affairs, without proper procedure, as well as publicly disclosing internal affairs were actions in breach of his contract, and after consideration of the particulars I previously mentioned, an appropriate penalty for Mr. Ibushi will be determined. However, the words of the official in his text conversation were inexcusable, especially in their direction to a wrestler who risks his life in order to fill his role as a professional. It is this mindset that directly led to Mr. Ibushi posting his critical tweets about the company. For the thoughtlessness of these messages, we fully and unreservedly apologize to Mr. Ibushi. Despite the official's lengthy relationship with Mr. Ibushi, the lack of consideration shown to him by extension, and by extension our wrestlers at large, should also be met with an appropriate penalty. We then have a lengthy statement from Kadani, and then they had a Q&A here. And then we have basically just a summary of this all. So let me get to that. And that's where we get the Here we go. Kota Ibushi is and will remain a key member of New Japan Pro Wrestling roster. This kind of severe disagreement between company and talent should not happen again. In order to prevent any such instances in the future and ensure the best possible working environment for talent, we will be actively engaged in discussion with Mr. Ibushi about improving company policy and implementing proper procedure. We again would like to apologize to fans, wrestlers, and personnel for the concern and disruption caused in the middle of the Best of the Super Juniors tour. So that's that. We finally have an answer as to where this is going with Ibushi. I think a lot of people expected him to most likely be leaving New Japan and that this would be the end of his time as part of NJPW. That is not the case. He's sticking around with the company, and they seem to have resolved their issues, at least for now. So if you're a Kota Ibushi fan and you are enjoying him in New Japan, or you've enjoyed him in New Japan, then I guess be happy. It's nice to see them come out and, apologize for everything that happened here and, for Obari to take accountability for this Kikuchi guy. I'm surprised that, it says that they have to figure out a penalty for him. One would think that you would probably want to terminate his contract with what was caused here, but you never know. Regardless, that is the update with Kota Ibushi. So we'll move on into the Best of the Super Juniors coming up next. Okay, so night 8 of the Best of the Super Juniors, we're going to kick things off with Alex Zane versus Ace Austin, which is a fairly substantial match considering. Commentary noted that since coming into the Best of the Super Juniors, Alex Zane's Twitter followers have increased by 7,000, which is pretty crazy. The big thing here is that Alex Zane and Ace Austin have been actively doing great social media work since coming to Japan. They've gotten very over with the fans, specifically together. And with them being so tied together online, Chris Carlton dubbed this the collision with the implosion of the besties of the Super Juniors. So to kick things off here, we had a springboard knee drop followed up by a flipping senton by Alex Zane. As he hit the senton, Austin rolled him up with a crucifix. Alex Zane managed to pull one of Ace's cards out, taunting him with it, and then Ace slid out a second card from his sleeve. So we got some card taunting. Austin goes for his dive. Zane got onto the apron beforehand, getting caught with a rope-hung backbreaker before Austin then nails Soarin' to Glory, which is a big dive over the rope for a big reaction here. We had a standing corkscrew senton from Alex Zane for a 2 count, which looked really nice, and then a huge springboard kick from Ace Austin for another 2 count. That got a big audible gasp from the crowd. Alex Zane hit a huge jumping Hurricane Rana in the corner, and Ace countered it with an audible gasp from the crowd as well. Just, worth noting what the crowd is actually, reacting to. And as this tournament continues, and Korakuen specifically, the crowds are, just kind of making noise at this point. They're not actively, cheering, but, they're laughing when there's comedy, and they're reacting to the big stuff. Austin goes up top and misses with a crossbody, and Zane then fails to land Baja Blast. Alex goes up top for the Cinnamon Twist, but Ace crawls away and pleads with him, saying that they're best friends, and he draws him in and goes for the roll-up with a 2 count. Zane and Austin then hold on to each other's hands and just go to war, trading elbow strikes in the ring. Zane goes for the taco driver, and Ace flips out of it. We have a pop-up knee from Zane, and then a spinning back kick from Ace as both go down for a big reaction here. Ace goes for the fold, but Alex catches him and drops him with the Baja Blast. It was a really good counter. Zane goes high, calls for the Cinnamon Twist, but Ace grabs the top rope and crotches him. Ace then hits this was a really nice transition into the fold where, because Zane's on the top rope, Austin brings him down with a head scissor, and then follows up with the fold. And Ace Austin wins, and moves to 8 points in the tournament. So at the end of this, I'll have the breakdown coming out of Night 8 with all the points, but I thought this was a really hot start to the show. Again, Night 7 was an absolutely phenomenal night for just in-ring wrestling. Definitely the strongest of the tournament, but Night 8 really kicked things off strong with this Alex Zane and Ace Austin match. From there, we went on to Bushi versus Doki. This is coming off of Doki's wonderful match with El Phantasmo. They used to wrestle Bushi. I don't have too many notes for this one, but we'll still talk about it. Out of the gates, we had a fast suicide dive from Doki onto Bushi, and he wipes out on the timekeeper's table. That looked kind of rough. Bushi then nails his own dive and sends Doki into the front row. We have a DDT from Bushi with Doki rolling through a sunset flip into the Doki Choki afterwards, but Bushi fights out and gets to the bottom rope. Doki, this was a good spot actually. Doki goes for Daybreak, but Bushi catches him with the MX or the Code Breaker, whatever you want to call it, but can't capitalize for a count. We have the Magic Screw from Bushi for a 2 count. Bushi then comes off the top rope for MX, but Doki catches him in the Doki Choki again, and he chokes him out, and Bushi verbally gives up, which means Doki moves to 6 points. What a tournament for Doki. Off to a hot start for this guy. This is probably a match you can skip. I mean, it wasn't too long, so I guess that's nice, but this definitely wasn't anything to write home about. Good ending, though, with Bushi, getting, going for his finish and getting caught in the Doki Choki. Or the Italian Stretch 82, whatever you want to call it. Clark Connors versus Francesco Akira. Both these guys have been looking really, really good this tournament, so coming into this, I was pretty excited. And I thought these guys delivered. Ringside, Francesco sends Clark headfirst into the ring post, which made the audience gasp. We had a leaping head scissors from Akira following this up, which sent Clark headfirst again into the ring post, which led to our first 19 count. We had a huge pounce from Clark that just sent Francesco flying across the ring. This looked great. Clark goes up for the extinction elbow, but Akira nails him with his cheeky Nando's variant, which is called the ugly face. He follows this up with a fireplex for a 2 count. Francesco goes for the firebomb, but Clark evades and goes for his spear, with Akira sunset flipping him for a big 2 count. This was a very good sequence. Firebomb gets attempted again, but Clark catches him with the power slam, follows up with the trophy kill, and Clark Connors wins, which means Clark Connors has moved to 4 points, and Francesco Akira sits at 2. Genuinely kind of shocked about this. I thought Francesco was going to, kind of have a big tournament, but then looking back at, the United Empire's debut and their run as a group in the beginning, they don't always win their first outings. So it is what it is. And again, Francesco's really young, so it's not like this is harming him. He's getting a lot of exposure here. And yeah, I thought this was a really fun match between these two. Clark Connors looks absolutely phenomenal in this tournament. The match with Taguchi, I think, really sold me more so than anything, just because it showed that the guy has variety. It's not just great wrestling. He can do comedy. So yeah. So Clark Connors goes to 4. Francesco sits at 2. Move on to Teton versus Wheeler Yuta. I was looking forward to this quite a bit. I thought Wheeler Yuta has started showing signs of more greatness lately since the Desperado match. And Teton, this guy, I'm falling in love with him. Kicking things off, we have leg sweep exchanges to start off before Yuta and Titan go to war for a big chop battle in the ring. We have a big Hurricane Rana from Teton, which sends Yuta to the floor, and he then follows up with 2 Tope Suicidas back-to-back, and he gets a big reaction from the crowd. An air raid crash in the ring from Teton for a 2 count. He then drills Yuta with a super kick, or thrust kick, whatever you want to say, which I'm glad he's using after the match with El Phantasmo, before then eating a back body drop. Teton comes back with a Pele kick. Yuta then goes for his bridging German, but gets rolled up, and then rolls up Teton for 2. In the corner, running elbow from Wheeler Yuta, but then Teton fires back from the opposite corner with a running lariat and just flies through the ropes. I love this spot. It seems like it's dangerous, but it looks so good. And eventually Yuta comes back and steals him with the seatbelt clutch. So Wheeler Yuta moves to 6 points. Teton sits at 2. I could have honestly done with Teton getting an upset here over Yuta, though I don't know if I'd ever see him in AEW challenging for the Pure title. So, fair enough. Whereas Robbie Eagles or Desperado, I could see. I thought this was really fun, though. I love Yuta, and I'm falling head over heels for Teton. I think this guy's great. So big fan of this one as well. That sends us to El Lindaman versus El Phantasmo. This comes off of both guys having great matches the prior night with Doki versus Phantasmo and Lindaman versus Desperado. Phantasmo tries to tease El Lindaman to start, but Lindaman just uses a drop toe hold to send him onto the bottom rope before ruffling his hair like a child. Phantasmo then walks over Lindaman, strutting as the crowd claps a beat for him before he starts walking backwards and just walks into a brutal-looking German suplex, just gets dumped on his head. Lindaman's huge dive lands. I love his dive. It just looks so good. And he lands on his feet before getting sent face first into the ring post. Lots of ring post spots tonight. We have a stalling brainbuster from El Phantasmo, which gets a 2 count, followed up with a double knee gutbuster for another 2 count, and then just a massive sit-out last ride powerbomb for another near fall. Lindaman then runs over Phantasmo, just literally, before then going for a diving double stomp. ELP pretends to botch, playing off his loss to Doki, but Lindaman blocks the roll-up and deadlifts him for a suplex that gets a big near fall. Phantasmo continues to pretend to be hurt, calling for a timeout, and as the refs, gets a little distracted here. He gets nailed with a sudden death and lands the CR2, and El Phantasmo wins, moving to 8 points. So, really good stuff here. I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I thought El Phantasmo was looking really good this tournament. And El Lindemann, coming into this tournament as a guy I've only seen wrestle a handful of times, I was quite a big fan with him. Sho versus Taguchi. This fucking match. Taguchi comes out with a headlamp and has a bag with him as well. Sho immediately chokes out Taguchi and drags him back into the entranceway before sticking his head out through the curtain with Kevin Kelly saying, "Here's Shoey." Taguchi slowly crawls out and makes his way back into the ring, diving in at 18. We have a running hip attack from Taguchi, which cuts off Sho's control at the start. They then go to the floor, and Taguchi chokes Sho out with his shirt and drags him into the opposite entranceway. Taguchi then teabags Sho and comes through the curtain with his thong exposed. This got a very big reaction from the crowd. This whole match, the crowd was just... there was no rules for this. Sho gone, Taguchi swaps Sho's bag for his. This would come back later. Taguchi with a misdirect as he pretends to start sprinting. Sho buys it and runs into a jumping hip attack, which allows Taguchi to hit a B-trigger. Kenta Sato gets tossed back and forth between the two men. Eventually, Sho setting up for a spear, but Taguchi and Kenta Sato just back away and Sho face plants. Eventually, Kenta Sato eats a hip attack from Taguchi, and then he calls for his headlamp as Sho suplexes him. Sho goes for his bag, and his wrench has been replaced with a banana, so he freaks the fuck out. Ankle lock gets locked in from Taguchi. Sho counters it into the snake bite, and Sho gets stacked for a 2 count before getting put back into the ankle lock. Sho is about to tap out, but then the lights go out, and Dick Togo is in the ring. The crowd erupts as Taguchi then sits on his face. Yujiro Takahashi gets into the ring and nails Taguchi with his cane, knocking him out as Sho pins him, with Sho moving to 4 points finally. This was honestly a ton of fun. This is probably the best type of House of Torture match. It just worked in this match. It was just very goofy and over the top, and honestly, I enjoyed this. And we got Evil coming out after. So we had Evil, Dick Togo, Yujiro, and Sho posing in the ring, and this was perfectly fine. I'd honestly recommend this. This was a lot of fun, and I believe this is where we took our intermission for the show. So So first 5 matches, I'd say pretty good stuff. I would say watch Taguchi versus Sho, watch El Lindemann versus Phantasmo, watch Teton versus Yuta. You can probably skip Doki versus Bushi. Watch Clark Connors versus Francesco, and watch Alex Zane versus Ace Austin. Actually, that might be the first 6 matches. I can't count, apparently. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, okay. So we went to break after Lindemann versus Phantasm and came back with Sho versus Taguchi. So it is what it is. Yeah. So moving forward with our last 4 matches, I guess, since I miscounted, we have Yoshinobu Kanemaru versus Taiji Ishimori coming with Kanemaru coming off his big upset victory over Hiromu. This kicked off the same way as the match with Hiromu, as Kanemaru targeted Ishimori's leg with a basement dropkick to start, but Ishimori heads out onto the floor. Ishimori then chases Kanemaru around the ring as Kanemaru nails a satellite DDT back in the ring and follows up with an attempted deep impact before eating the double knees from Ishimori. Kanemaru blinds Ishimori with the whiskey as Ishimori goes for the belt shot, and Kanemaru rolls up Ishimori and wins. Another shock victory, and this keeps anybody at 2 points alive in the tournament, as Ishimori winning would have, I think, mathematically eliminated all of the 2 people. So Kanemaru moves to 4 points and gets 2 of the biggest upsets in the tournament. So if you're a Yoshinobu Kanemaru fan, you're probably rejoicing right now. We would then move on to Robbie Eagles versus TJP. We had a very technical start to the match here, with TJP standing on his head as he normally does while in submission holds as a big counter/taunt spot. The 2 then traded leg sweeps before Eagles got locked in a submission from TJP. He gets out, and then Robbie Eagles dabs on TJP. We have a running Hurricane Rana from Robbie, who followed up with a leg lariat, and then a fake-out suicide dive to taunt TJP, this time using the finger guns, which is pretty great as a avid 205 Live fan from its launch to 2019. Love to see it. Robbie goes for the turbo backpack, but his eyes get raked. TJP then goes for his own turbo backpack, but Eagles gets out and takes out his knee from behind with an elbow. We have running knees in the corner from Eagles, which gets a 2 count as he goes up for the 450, though TJP rolls out. TJP locks in the knee bar, but transitions it then into the Pinoy stretch as Eagles immediately gets to the ropes. We have a springboard elbow for TJP, which gets followed up for the final cut with for a 2 count. TJP misses a swanton and then eats a chop block. Robbie goes high and gets caught in a single leg DDT as TJP looks once again for the Pinoy stretch. Ron Miller's special gets locked in, but TJP gets to the ropes. We have the turbo backpack landing from Robbie this time, but TJP kicks out. Robbie goes up top again looking for the 450, but TJP gets the knees up. The Mamba splash from TJP, but he won't pin him. He locks in the Pinoy stretch and forces Robbie Eagles to tap. I thought these two had really good chemistry. They went toe-to-toe with the submissions, and they also brought the high-flying stuff. Lots of energy in this one, and I think both guys are still having really solid tournaments from an in-ring perspective. I think TJP is showing everybody just how talented he is, which I don't really think is normally up for debate, but, you know, a lot of people don't like TJP, and rightfully so for his personality and stuff, but when it comes to in-ring, TJP is just such a smooth wrestler. That would send us to our semi-main event, which is El Desperado versus Master Wato, a rematch from whatever it was after Wrestle Kingdom. I forget what it was called this year. El Desperado gets taken out with a jumping spin kick pretty early on here, with Wato getting control to start off. We have an interesting note from Kevin Kelly that Wheeler Yuta and Master Wato are both the same age, and basically the story of this match is that Wato still isn't that good, but you know this whole match was basically him showing everybody what he's capable of, and yeah, I thought him versus Robbie Eagles the night before, and then him versus El Desperado, two of Master Wato's best matches that I've seen. We have a chop battle with Desperado just obliterating Wato's chest, and then he goes to work on Wato's left leg. We have a very nice looking dive over the top rope from Master Wato, and then he follows up with another dive over the top, partially wiping out in the stands. Back in control, Desperado goes after the knee again with the Dragon Screw before locking in Numero Dos and attempting to brutalize our blue boy. Desperado calls for Wato to stand up, and Wato, does, and he lifts him for a knee breaker, but Wato catches him with a kick, freeing himself. We have a big head kick from Wato that knocks down Despy again. Wato follows up with a high-angle German, which looks really nice, but he can't capitalize on the pin. Recitamente for a 2 count. Wato locks in his submission. I still don't know the name of it. Desperado fights the ropes using his leg to get the rope break. Wato goes high and misses the RPP as Desperado moves out of the way. The chop block from Desperado as he goes for Numero Dos, but Wato rolls him up for 2. Ripcord Spinebuster from Despy. Catarde Angel for a 2 count. Pinche Loco gets attempted, but Wato goes for the head scissors, but loses his grip on the roll-up and allows Desperado to hit the Pinche Loco for the win. Story of this is that Wato should have had Desperado done here with his submission, but then he got cocky and went for the RPP instead of locking the submission in again, which would have probably given him the win. So, I thought Master Wato looked actually fairly good here, and Desperado, again, is Desperado. You know what you're getting with him. He's great. But, I'd recommend this. I thought this was a really solid semi-main event. Desperado moves to 8 points. Master Wato continues to sit at 2. And that would send us to our main event here, Yo versus Hiromu Takahashi. Yo plays it smart. He immediately targets Hiromu's knee with a basement dropkick and attempts to lock in a submission, but Hiromu runs onto the floor. We have a rough-looking chop block from Yo to Hiromu, who follows up with a series of knee slams onto the mat. Yo gets the figure 4 locked in the center of the ring, playing off Kanemaru on night 7, who got Hiromu to submit with this. Hiromu leaps up with a one-legged Hurricane Rana to cut off Yo's strong start, and follows up with a Falcon Arrow for a 2 count. We have a thrust kick from Hiromu, but Yo catches the leg and kicks out Hiromu's other one, following up with a Dragon Screw on the rope. And Yo would continue to use the Dragon Screw here, and we had commentary note that, as fan favorite and as great as Tanahashi is, sometimes he can be a bit of the bastard with targeting everybody's legs. So I really like the parallel they're setting with Yo and Tanahashi. A snap German from Hiromu, which gets followed up by the Hiromu Bomber Lariat to knock down Yo. Hiromu looks for Time Bomb, but his leg gives out, and he follows up with a complete shot instead. We have the Dynamite Plunger from Hiromu, which gets a 2 count. Goes for Time Bomb again, but Yo gets out, and Hiromu goes for another thrust kick, but Yo catches him again and lands another Dragon Screw. A superplex from Yo, but he holds on and lands a Falcon Arrow, and then locks in the knee bar, fighting to keep it in the center. Really looked like Hiromu was going to tap here, but he didn't. He finds a way and gets the rope break. This was great stuff. Crowd was so into all of this. Hiromu hits a headbutt, and on his third attempt, he finally hits the thrust kick. Victory royale from Hiromu as he goes for the time bomb 2, skipping time bomb, but Yo gets the 5-star clutch. Hiromu kicks out at 2.9. Yo levels Hiromu with a super kick, just absolutely kills him here. Inside cradle from Hiromu gets a 2 count. We have another failed time bomb attempt as Yo drops him over his knee with some new move. Commentary didn't even know what to call this. Direct drive, and Yo wins. Yo moves to 6 points and ties Hiromu here, who now sits at 6 points as well. I thought this was a fantastic main event. I thought both guys looked really good. Hiromu sold his ass for Yo. And this was just the most, methodical and just well-oiled Yo I think we've ever seen. So I was a big fan of this. So coming out of this, our points here. A block is led by Taiji Ishimori at 8 points, and Ace Austin, the X Division champion, both currently tied 4-1. Hiromu, Alex Zane, and Yo sit at 6 points, all 3-2. Sho, Clark Connors, and Kanemaru are 2-3 with 4 points, and Taguchi and Francesco Akira sit at 2 points as 1-4. Over in B block, we have El Desperado and El Fantasmo tied in the lead with 8 points. El Lindemann, Wheeler Yuta, and Doki sit at 6 points. Bushi, Robbie Eagles, and TJP are at 4, and Teton and Master Wato are at 2. I would give the points breakdown for our predictions here, but as this show is beginning, I realized I did not have the matches predicted for any of us. None of us predicted this because I forgot a night in our tournament brackets, so we did not predict night 8 of this tournament. So I will come back with our updated scores when we review night 9 for the best of the Super Juniors, but that is it. That's night 8 covered. We also talked about KOTA IBUSHI, obviously, so thank you for listening. Be sure to leave any feedback down in the comments. Leave a like on the video. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the podcast feed wherever you're listening. We appreciate all of it. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify streaming, Anchor, Apple, Google, Stitcher, Overcast, Breaker. We're on plenty of different things. Just look up the Deep Six Wrestling Podcast and you'll find us. We appreciate all the support. We'll talk to you guys in the next episode.